I am a huge fan of Marvel Snap. Its quick gameplay and digital ease are unbeatable, and I have tried to get my friends to get into it. But having to be able to start your collection at zero and be able to get all the cards and feel like you're falling behind or don't have the strongest cards is not an easy selling point. So I have been on the search to find a lane battler that I can play in its physical form and battle my friends right here on the table. For the past 6 months, I have tried a countless amount of games in the battler genre to mimic that feeling of Marvel Snap. Some of those games that I've tried are Smash Up, Air, Land and Sea, but it's this latest game that I think has definitely got that feeling that I am looking for, and that is Compile.
What can I play?
Here at What Can I Play, I'm trying to find a game to play no matter the situation. And the situation I've got myself in today is trying to find a physical alternative to Marvel Snap that I can showcase to my friends and play right here on this very table. And that particular game is Compile. But before we talk about this, let's talk about a couple of other games that I also found quite similar to Marvel Snap. First up, Smash Up. Smash Up is a fantastic game where you find yourself smashing two decks together to make a unique deck that you can battle your friends in a lane battler. There's many different locations that you find yourself fighting your opponents again. What's interesting about Smash Up, it's for more than 2 players, but it plays very well at 2 players. And it gives you that same feeling of Marvel Snap to an extent. You get the combos, you get to win locations, and if you play the Marvel variant, you're playing with Marvel characters, which is the one that I have. It is a lot of fun, but I think some of its downsides is it's just a little bit too long, and the victory point mechanic is a little bit too different to Marvel Snap for what I'm searching for. But again, it is a fantastic game that has found many plays at my table. The next game that I tried was Air, Land and Sea. Air, Land and Sea is actually a game that Marvel Snap's creators, Second Dinner, have quoted to finding inspiration for the creation of Marvel Snap. Air, Land and Sea is an awesome game. It's a 3-lane battler where you are competing to win 2 of those 3 lanes before the battle ends, and ultimately win the war by getting 12 victory points. What I love about Air, Land and Sea is the retreat mechanic, where it mimics that of Marvel Snap, where you're trying to not be as risky and risk all your cubes. In this case, you're not trying to give your opponent as many victory points so they can win the war. But I think where Air, Land and Sea lacks is a little bit in that combo potential and the replayability. There's 18 cards, and once you've played it a few times, you've kind of seen many of the combos that lay at hand. Although there is different strategies, and it becomes a bit more like a game of chess where you're trying to outmaneuver your opponent. So 3 months ago, this is kind of where the video ended, and I was going to talk about these two and ask you guys if there was any other games out there that mimicked Marvel Snap. But after a lot more researching on Board Game Geek and looking at all the communities, a little birdie told me about a game called Compile. I had a look at it and instantly pre-ordered it, and I haven't been disappointed since. Let's talk about Compile. Compile is a 2-player, 3-lane battler, just like Marvel Snap. Thematically, you are rogue AIs competing for supremacy over which is the best AI that will reign supreme over the lands. How you do this is amongst your 3 different lanes. It's a race to compile each one of these lanes. Compiling is when you reach 10 points in a lane at the start of your turn, and by doing so, you discard all your cards on your side and your opponent's card, and you get to compile and score one of the 3 lanes that you need to win. What makes Compile fun is it's also got a drafting element, and you're not just smashing 2 decks together like Smash Up, you're smashing 3 decks together. Each deck, or protocol is what they call them, has a unique offering for combo potential. You've got things from Psychic, where it allows you to look at your other players' cards. You've got things from Death, which just causes massive destruction on the board. You've got things like Life that keeps getting more cards from the draw pile into the play area consistently. Each protocol has a unique selling point, and comboing them all together is what makes the game quite fun. Once you've played a few games, trying to mitigate what your opponent is choosing is also part of the strategy at the start. Okay, so how is a turn-by-turn play for Compile? So with Compile, you take turns. I wish it was simultaneous action like Marvel Snap, but I think that's a really hard thing to do in this genre, but I'm still keeping my eye out for it. Each turn, you play 1 card, or draw back up to 5, called refreshing your cards. On your turn, If you choose to play a card, you can play that card face down in any lane, or you can play it face up in the correct protocol lane. By playing it face up, you then have access to the abilities that the card has to offer. What makes this game really fun is some cards can have up to 3 different things they can do. And let's talk about that. At the top, you have your persistent actions. These are like your ongoing abilities in Marvel Snap. These are constantly active as long as that card is visible and face up. In the middle, you have your immediate actions. These actions is what allow for some great combo potential. These happen immediately when played or revealed. Let's treat these like your on reveals in Marvel Snap. When you place them down, you do its effect immediately, and the other fun thing is when they get revealed later on from being flipped or moved or otherwise, they activate again. Lastly, you've got your bottom layer. These are your trigger actions. These happen when something triggers them, at the start of your turn, at the end of your turn, or when the card's covered, etc. Again, these open up a lot of combo potentials and can be quite fun. The last thing that I want to talk about is the game's control aspect. This is not quite initiative, but it gives you that feeling of initiative in Marvel Snap. You're constantly trying to work out whether you need control or don't need control. Why do you want control? Well, control can be quite powerful, especially with controlling the game. Control allows you to rearrange the protocols when either someone is about to compile or they're refreshing their hand. This allows you to potentially stop your opponent from scoring. However, they still get a little consolation prize as they now get to take one of your cards from the top of your deck to be used in their deck for the rest of the game. Okay, so now let's talk about why I believe Compile is the best physical alternative to Marvel Snap. When it comes to Lane Battler, they all have it, and that's why I ultimately love all these games. When it comes to deck building, Air, Land and Sea falls short. When it comes to being under 20 minutes, Compile can be. Mostly, there are games where it can go longer, but 20-minute game is often about the benchmark that I've had. When it comes to retreat mechanic, Air, Land and Sea has the upper hand here. And that is the one thing I wish Compile maybe had in it. When it comes to combos, all of these games can have it, but Compile and Smash Up and Marvel Snap hit those sweet spot. When it comes to hand management, they all have it. You really need to make sure which cards you want to play at any given time. Exactly when it comes to power management as well. Do you go for one lane over another? It's really the core crux of the lane battler genre. Energy system, only Marvel Snap has that. I'd love to see that in a physical card game as well. Location effects, again, Compile falls short here and Smash Up has the win here. And that does definitely give the edge to Smash Up in some cases, but it does also mean the games can go on a little bit longer. Betting, only Marvel Snap has it. Bluffing, only Marvel Snap has it. I guess Compile can have it a little bit as you put your cards face down and you're kind of bluffing what lane you want to be in and X, Y, and Z, but let's say no for instance. Lastly, we have initiative. Initiative is a feature in Marvel Snap that is quite important to dictating how the game is played. In Compile, we have something quite similar. It is not quite initiative per se, but it is the control aspect, where I would like to say has a very similar outcome to what it does in Marvel Snap. It allows you to actually control the protocols in the event of Compile, which ultimately lets you dictate how some of the events can unfold in each round. There you have it. Compile stacks up quite nicely with the rest of the games, but it's this last initiative-like feature that Compile has that I feel like it gives it that edge in similarity to Marvel Snap. Overall, I believe Compile to be one of the best card battlers that I've played, especially when it comes to being a physical card game that you can play on your table. Its similarity to Marvel Snaps gives me that vibe that I am looking for when it comes to a lane battler and something that I want to compete with my friends. What Compile does really well, it iterates on the genre that we know and love. Just like Marvel Snap has iterated on the genre of lane battlers and turned it digital and has a bit more freedom for some wackiness with the combo potentials, Compile has done the same. It's iterated in its physical form. The introduction of having at least 3 abilities on a card introduces a plethora of more strategic depth and combo potential in something that is so light and interesting in a game that only has 18 cards in each deck that you make. And there's another thing that this game has to offer. There's so many different combinations that you can make with this game, and only more to come, as there's already one expansion out allowing you to mix and match with multiple different things. Lastly, Compile isn't that complicated. Whilst there is 3 things to do, you are only playing 1 card a turn and only have 5 cards in your hand, so you can analyze them quite quickly and know what to do. Even my wife, who is new to board games, as I've spoken to in the last video, feel free to check it out here, found this game quite interesting and compelling. It is quite tight, it's quite nice, and yes, there are times some decks work better than others, but I think that in itself is what makes the game really fun. Just like in Marvel Snap, you're always mixing and matching so many different genres of cards. In Compile, you can do the same too, and every game comes out slightly different. If you're a fan of Marvel Snap, I highly recommend you checking out Compile or one of the multiple games that I mentioned in this video. Each one of them scratches that itch of playing Marvel Snap IRL a little bit. I'm still on the lookout for more games that scratch that Marvel Snap itch, but for now, I'm just going to keep playing Compile.